Hi everyone, this is Pierrick from Picaut Design. In this video I will show you how I have animated this run cycle from Noara the Conspiracy in Blender. If you've ever taken any animation class, we always start by learning the bouncing ball, because it allows you to learn the principle of animation, some physics, and eventually some appeal or even character into a ball. And you will use those principles for everything you will animate. If you look at the crab and I get rid of the legs and the arms, you can see now the work I have done as if it was a bouncing ball. So before we start into animating it, I will just show you how I create this masking system, which is very simple. This is the kind of rigging tip you will learn in my new course, but I will show you this one a little later in this video. Since this character will be then imported into our game, I've created those rulers that correspond to a block in the game and will help me to evaluate the distance the character needs to attack, for example. But in our case, we'll be working onto the walk cycle. So I will just block the first pose, which will be some kind of the default pose in which the character will be walking or running. Generally, when we create an animation, we start with the blocking stage where we will key the main poses of the character. Once you're happy with the blocking, you start polishing the animation using spline and curves. But for this character, I've used another method. I will first animate the legs, then the body, and finally the ends. Somehow as if I was dealing with layers of animation. To visually separate the features of my character, I will add a mask modifier, go into edit mode, and create a vertex group for the arms and the legs. I will then copy this mask modifier and assign each vertex group so that whenever I will activate the modifier, I will be able to whether mask the legs or the arm. Since I want to be able to activate and deactivate those modifiers without returning into the modifier stack, I will add a custom property to my custom property bones. It's a bone where I create all my custom properties such as the FK and IK switch. So I will add a new custom property, I will call it mask arms and mask leg. I will get rid of the decimal into their value range so that I will be working with integers, as I want it to be 0 or 1, such as a switch on and off. I don't want to have a range between those values. I will then right click on the value and copy the data path. This will allow me to input this value somewhere else. I will then go back onto my mesh into the modifier stack and I will add a driver onto the visibility of the modifier. I will switch it to average value and I will use a single property that is stored into the armature and past the data path. Now I will have this purplish color onto the display option and I will be able to switch it on and off into the property bone using the custom properties in the property bone. I can now start animating the character. So as I told you before, I will animate each feature of the character separately, starting with the legs. I won't be blocking the whole character pose to pose in step interpolation because it's very hard for me to figure out how to pose the character. If you imagine a crab or a spider walking, that's very complicated to understand and figure out the offset between the different legs. What I will do instead is to create a nice motion for each leg and then I will offset them in time so that their contact will occur at different moments. The first thing I'm trying to figure out now is the length of a step. So I've stretched out the leg at its maximum and I'm now moving it toward the character as its maximum too. Now I create an intermediate pose where the leg will be in the air, and finally I will get back to the original pose so that I've created the whole loop. I will then directly start polishing the spline. The first thing is to make sure that I have a linear interpolation on the ground, meaning that I will select both keyframes that are in contact with the ground and switch them using the V key to vector. Now the curve looks like a straight line between those 2 points, meaning that the foot will move at a constant speed on those frames. This will allow us to avoid foot sliding when we will add a root motion in the game engine. Once I'm happy with the result, I will repeat the process with the next leg. I will just offset the contact pose by a few frames. The only thing I need to remember is that the contact pose is on 5 frames, and I need every leg to move at the same speed whenever they are in contact with the ground. What I did to solve this is compare the distance between the start value and the end value, so that I know how much distance the foot will move on during the contact pose. Doing a simple subtraction, I knew that in 5 frames the foot should slide for 0.4 meters. Then I just add to polish each leg animation and offset them. The trick was to first offset the leg on the same side of a few frames, so that I have an alternate contact and air pose between each leg. Then working on the other side, the idea was to have the corresponding leg in air while the leg on the other side was on the ground. Then I've slightly worked on the pole target for the outer leg. Since they were not in the axis of the walk cycle, I wanted to make them twist a bit, as these legs are trying to push on the ground. So if you try to push with your foot from a side stance, you will rotate your knee so that it makes a straight line toward the ground. Assuming that you are pushing in this direction, meaning that you are trying to involve movement toward this direction. Once I feel happy with this first pass of leg movement, I can check it in a custom layout. This is an additional layout I have created that allows me to easily check the animation through different angles, especially game view angles. You can create them by clicking the plus button on the top bar. Then I've switched to flat shading and used the texture mode. This will display the texture that is currently active in the node editor. To make a texture active, just click on the corresponding texture node. Then I'm just creating a bunch of 3D view windows inside this layout with different camera position. Once I was done with that, I just input a bit of up and down motion and forward and backward motion to the main controller, also a bit of side to side motion, a bit of rotation and deformation. And then I've been working on follow through animation for the eyes. So it's mostly a slight up and down motion and side to side motion with a bit of jiggle using the stretching bone that is on top of it. Finally, I've also worked on the end as a follow-through animation because I wasn't seeing those as leading the animation. When a human being runs, he uses his arm to gather energy and throw himself forward. But if you see a crab character moving, generally the claws are pretty still. So in this case, I just wanted to use it as a follow-through animation and just find a first pose where it won't clip that much with the legs. It's just a matter of playing with the up and down motion and a subtle rotation of the claws using a follow through, meaning that there will be a little delay between the movement of the claws and the body. Then it was done. Here is the final result. I've slightly increased the pace of the movement, which we can do directly in Unity. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This really helps. And let me know in the comment if you want more breakdowns animation video like this. See you!